Scarcity is everywhere you look. Even in people who seem to have a lot of money, there's so often a fear that there will not be enough in the future. And it's not just money. There's a scarcity of time, resources, love, attention, happiness, you name it. So if it's everywhere, why am I suggesting that scarcity is not really real? Today we're discussing one of the most pervasive and deep-set illusions at this level of consciousness, and how to break the illusion of scarcity and start to access limitless abundance. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part of this episode. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you like this episode, please subscribe by clicking on the red button. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing the illusion of scarcity.
The illusion of scarcity. What do you mean by that? Because I have experienced physical scarcity.
Yeah,
so
for
you're
sure.
telling me it's an illusion?
Yeah, so I'm just going to back up first and just say there's a lot of economic uncertainty right now, okay? We have, large governments defaulting on loans. We have large banks going under. It's just a lot of economic uncertainty. And when you have this kind of instability and uncertainty, people become afraid. Right? So they're really freaked out right now, and because they feel like they're not going to have enough. And so scarcity, like you just said, rears its head, and it's very present for people right now because they're afraid. Because they're afraid that they're not going to have enough. And if you don't have enough, then you may not survive. Really, that's really what it's about.
So it's about survival.
Survival and the fear that you're not going to have enough. Exactly.
Okay. And so how does that rear its head? Like, how do we recognize it in ourselves? How do we recognize it in the people around us?
Yeah.
And I guess then, how do we manage it?
Yeah. And then why is it an illusion? Because it feels real.
Yeah, I want to come back to that.
Yeah, totally. So so within us, even if you're really affluent, it can feel like you don't have enough, right? So there can be people, it doesn't have anything to do with how much money you have. So for example, for myself, okay, so Chris and I used to be real estate agents in San Francisco, which is an extraordinarily affluent city. Okay, there's a lot of tech money there. There are a lot of stock options, a lot of people with a lot of money. Okay, what I noticed is even in myself that because we were helping people buy and sell homes, which were expensive, and we were very good at what we did, and we had a lot of referral clients, we had a lot of money. Okay, so if you looked at our bank accounts, you would think, oh, these people are fine. You know, they own a home. They have money in the bank, they have savings, they're good. So why then did I always feel like I had to spreadsheet how much we had, how much cushion we had, the clients we had, how we were going to get more clients? There's all this driving force to acquire more, not because I wanted to spend it on like hundreds of pairs of shoes, which was fine, but that wasn't my thing. What drove me was my fear that we wouldn't have enough.
So it's a future fear?
Yeah, it was a future fear. And it wasn't, but it became a present fear because I was so afraid of what would happen in the future.
Yeah, so you've got the two kind of timelines happening. You're worrying about a future that hasn't happened and might never happen, but you're actually feeling fear in this present moment.
Yes.
So that would kind of explain a little bit of the illusion as well.
Yes, exactly.
Because you're kind of forecasting something that hasn't happened, it doesn't exist, and right now everything's fine.
Yeah, everything's fine. So as you said, because I was projecting into the future, I was afraid. And I noticed that in a lot of people that we worked with who were very affluent, right? So they'd be really worried about, paying an extra $3,000 to $5,000 for a house, which sounds like a lot of money, but in the context of that real estate market and how much the prices were, hundreds of thousands, oftentimes millions of dollars, 3,000 to 5,000 is actually very small, you know, in context.
In the ratio.
In the relativity of it. But they'd be really worried about that, like, oh my God, if we have to pay that much more, we're not going to be able to, pay the mortgage, they would go into all these kind of scenarios in their heads about the future, even though they'd had tax advice, they knew what they could their mortgage person had clearly indicated what their payments were. Like they knew logically exactly how much they were paying.
Yeah.
They knew they could do it. They'd had their jobs for X period of time. They'd put down a certain amount of projection into the future of this fear, like I am not going to have enough. Okay, so we have this illusion. So that's just one way it would show up. So in that context, I'm talking about houses, but it shows up in all kinds of ways when we tend to go into fear of like, oh my God, I don't have enough in the future. So you start to hoard in the present moment, or you start to do a whole bunch of like fear behaviors. Like I'm not going to spend money on this. I have to be thrifty here. I'm going to like, I've noticed that with some people, like in my family, when there starts to be fear around economic security, suddenly lots of food gets bought. I don't know why that's linked, but like it's like, oh my God, we don't have enough. Okay, we got to fill the fridge. like the fridge in the pantry somehow is going to make us okay for the future. Do you see? These are all I'm just giving examples of behaviors where it's like you are afraid for survival, because really those two things aren't linked. Like having your pantry full of food, right? It's not like there's going to be some kind of weather disaster and you're being prepared for it. This is like in response to fear about a future that doesn't yet exist of scarcity.
Yeah, it's kind of apocalyptic in a way, right?
Yeah.
I have so many questions around it because is it programming? Is it lineage? Is it a combination of both? I mean, I know for myself, I'll hang on to some things just in case. What's the just in case?
Exactly.
Right? And is it past experience? Is it because we've been there, it doesn't feel good, it hurts, and I don't ever want to feel that again?
Yeah.
So I'm going to do this just in case. You know? Or is it just a combination of the whole lot? Where does this scarcity actually come from? Because we all seem to suffer from it.
Absolutely. And it's very intertwined in the human experience at this consciousness level. And the reason that is, this is like the big takeaway, is because we believe that we're finite, that we're separate, and that we're not connected to everything. So we have the perspective from the little self of the mind that we are finite. So meaning that we have to like run really hard, work really hard, struggle really hard, all this stuff to try and get something, because we don't inherently feel like we're part of everything. So I'm just going to make a distinction. Imagine instead, if you were high enough in your vibration, you were high enough in your frequency resonance that you felt like you were connected to everything, would that scarcity still be there? If you're connected to everything and have access to everything, that scarcity isn't there. It doesn't exist. It only exists at this consciousness level because we believe through our little s self, or what I call the self associated with the ego mind, that we are separate and that we are finite. Do you see how this kind of links? It doesn't seem like it's related. You're like, what the hell does that have to do with feeling
3D
scarcity?
reality.
Yeah, exactly. But very much so. And then compounded on top of that belief, right, that we are finite, that we have to hustle to get more because we're not connected to anything. We have all of now these lineage patterns, these cultural patterns that tell us from all the people who came before us who had that same illusion of scarcity, right? Because it's really an illusion, it's a trick of the mind. So they're thinking, oh my God, I haven't had enough. And so now, because they don't have enough and their parents haven't had enough, what do they co-create more of? Not enough.
Yeah, I guess, and the world wars, like World War I and World War II, created or manifested or made it worse. Which one? Take your pick, right? The scarcity pattern, because they were on rations.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was about survival.
Absolutely.
It was survival.
Yeah.
So that, I guess that has been passed through each generation.
Especially through, if your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents were in Europe at the time. And a lot of those people fled with nothing because they didn't have anything and they were starving, and so you have that coming through the lineage, and then you have that happening in Asia as well, because a lot of what happened in the Second World War throughout Asia was there was mass starvation, and that type of thing afterwards. And so it's the same kind of story. It's just told in different ways.
It's in the collective.
It's in the collective. And then not only those world wars, I mean, just think about throughout history, all the famines and the wars and the diseases, all this stuff. It's like, oh, we don't have enough, right?
And when you feel separate, like you say, it's funny the timing. Yesterday, my husband showed me this little graphic. He's in a business group. I can't remember which platform, but they showed this little graphic, and it was a guy sitting with a little bucket at a water dispenser, collecting it, and it was starting to run out, and they were showing this is scarcity. And then you've got the guy that believes in abundance, and up above this little layer of water that was running, it was a cloud continually filling this container so that he could continually receive the water because he believed in some other force where he could actually tap into and manifest.
Yes.
That's so apt.
Yes.
To what you're just saying right now.
Yep.
Yeah. If we feel, or if we know and we understand who we truly are.
Yes.
And that we are connected to something far greater than just this physical body.
Yeah, and so that's part of what moving into the new consciousness is. Now, you and I have talked about, like, what is the new consciousness? What does that mean in terms of human experience? One radically different thing is that your vibration level or your frequency resonance gets high enough that you start to experience this connection, this interconnection with the one, your own limitlessness. And you're like, okay, well, limitless sounds great. I mean, that sounds wonderful. I'm like, no, if you are limitless, then you are abundant. Those two things are together. You can't separate them. So if you're starting to recognize, feel, be aware of your limitlessness, it is implicit in that you are abundant. You can't separate those two things.
Yep.
They're together. So even if you don't know in this moment, right, like how much water is going to be in that thing, you know it's going to keep filling. Why? Because the cloud that the water is coming from is infinite. Infinite. Always going to be full, right? And the thing is, it's funny, as humans, I don't know, this is the scarcity pattern. We're like, okay, hoard the water, put it in buckets, keep the water, right? But if it's infinite, does it matter that you have enough for today or for the next hour? Because in the next hour, you're gonna have more. In the next hour, you're gonna have more. In the next hour, you're gonna have more. But these scarcity patterns and the illusion of scarcity, we wanna like hang on to it. What if there's not enough? But if you know, because you have a high enough frequency resonance, there always is enough because you are infinite and connected to everything, then you have total faith in the filling of the water.
Totally. Yeah. And for me, that there's a line as well, because it's not just a case of, okay, there's going to be an abundance of water. Just believe there's going to be an abundance of water.
Yeah, true.
It's a case of you will get the signal or you'll get the pull or you'll get the tug to move to a place where there's more water.
Exactly.
It doesn't always just show up as the physical thing.
Agreed.
It's this knowing that, wait, there's another way. Oh, okay, this is another way to go to get the water. Sometimes I think that's not recognized when you're running these scarcity patterns. You can only see one way of getting the water and it's running out.
Exactly. It's funny. And people fixate on what they expect the delivery method to be, right?
Yep.
And so that is when you think of things as that fixed thing, and this is what we teach in the whole creation manifestation classes that we do, et cetera, where it's like if you fixate on the delivery method, you have just 100% limited the possibility of the infiniteness of the universe to bring you something non-linearly because you're so fixated on that one thing. So it's really important to release your expectation and to discover or to explore or to be aware of your own bias towards expectation, rule set, attachment, you know, because now you're not in neutrality or surrender, which are the two very, very key states to be in order for the entire force of the universe to conspire to help you. But if you're like, no, it needs to be my way, then there's like, there's you, and then the entire universe.
It really does narrow it. It's fascinating. I mean, I've been in both kind of situations, and sometimes I am totally amazed at what can be created beyond my realm of thinking. You know, there's just no way I would have thought of that tiny little detail that made that huge thing happen.
Yeah.
When I surrender and just let go and just, okay, trust.
Yeah,
You know?
or why does, like a little example. So Chris and I have just moved to San Miguel in Mexico, and our things have just arrived. And so there's a lot of things to unpack because we're settling into a new home. We also, because we have a car that only came with one key, we had to go get a copy of the key made. So there's this one store where we're going to go to get the key made. And they told us that it was going to take about an hour and a half. So we know it's Mexico, and Mexico time is a little bit more fluid than what we consider time to be in the United States. So we thought, okay, 2 hours, right? This is like padded a little bit, just in case it's not an hour and a half. All right. So 2.5 hours later, we returned to the store. Now we decided we were going to go on a walk that day, explore the town, get some exercise, that type of thing. So we were prepared, okay, we're going to do this, and then we're going to go home and unpack. But we go back to the shop, they're like, so sorry, no key. It's a little more difficult than we expected. We're like, okay, no problem. So here we go get flowers, these flowers right here, and you know, we do a bunch of different things. We come back to the store, sorry, it's not done yet. So Chris looks at me and he's like, the universe is giving us a gift. It's forcing us to relax and restore right now. It is forcing us because we can't do anything. We can't leave. We don't have a car. They have the key. We don't have a choice. But if you're in that surrender, you can be like, this is a gift. All right, let's go for lunch. We need this time to restore. That's why this is happening. My point is that we so much feel like we want things. Like we wanted the key. I was like, we have time. We're going to be 1 hour and a half to 2 hours. We are going to walk around, get our exercise, have some enjoyment, get the key, go home, unpack, right? The universe is like, nope.
Yeah, that's right. If you want, what is it they say? If you want to make God laugh, tell him your
Your
plans.
plans, exactly, right? So my point is that simply when you're co-creating with the universe, it's best to be in that state of neutrality and surrender, because then you can then pivot and be like, what's the gift here? Where's the growth? What am I learning from?
Totally.
So to pivot this back to the conversation with regards to the illusion of scarcity. The illusion of scarcity exists prevalently at this consciousness level because we truly have access to our limitlessness. We are limitless. We believe that we are not, but that is not true. We are limitless. And once you understand that and your vibration level is high enough, then you can start to experience it and start to experience what I call spherical abundance. So we have more synchronicity, more magic. Gifts come in like time that you didn't expect. I did not expect that morning to be leisure, but it was. And at that moment, we needed leisure. So all that stuff can happen. And so that's in part why we're giving the Spherical Abundance Workshop, or by the time you guys watch this, have given the Spherical Abundance Workshop, because it really is to release the distortion patterns that keep us mired in this disconnection, in this separateness, in the struggle, in the like, oh my God, in your example, there's only this much water. Quick, find buckets so we can fill it up. You know, so that you can drop all that and raise your vibration, raise your frequency resonance, because that's really about what it's about. It's not like you said, where you're like, okay, I intend for there to be water and there will be water in the bucket. It's not really about that. It's about raising your resonance so that you can experience this higher level of consciousness, and you cannot will your way there, and you cannot think your way there, and you cannot hope your way there. It is simply a matter of frequency resonance. And it's not like deserving either, you know? It's not like, I've been really good, I deserve to be of new consciousness. No. It's not that
self-entitled.
Yeah, exactly. Or human.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty binary. It's like, are you of high enough frequency resonance to access or not? It's that simple, you know?
Well, I'd love to bring it back to a global, or maybe we'll just stick to America right now, because I mean, there's been some scary news being pushed out in the media. And we're going to have a collective of people that are going to move into fear, and because of the scarcity. And so you're saying that to travel through this moment in time where we're going to be convinced that there's not enough, it's to raise your vibration.
Yes.
And what you're suggesting is some of the work that you're offering helps, but it also is like everyday practical tips. How do you just, because it's going to be there 24/7. That's the way the media works in America, right?
Yes,
the
it's
news
true.
just keeps on repeating the
same thing
stuff
over and over.
Switch it off, I guess.
Yes.
That would be the first.
Yeah, so if you notice that you're being affected by it, turn it off, because it isn't affecting your present moment reality. And then to do what we have called it before, holding your space. If you don't know what that is, watch episode 122, Steady She Goes, Hold Your Space. I recommend the deep dive or the free GFC, right? That is after that episode, to help you hold your space. Because that is the experience of the collective around you, and including some of your friends, your family, your coworkers, whoever, your partner even. Okay, they're having their experience. That's okay. They're having their experience. You're not trying to control their experience. What you control is you. So it's like, how do you hold your space, your frequency resonance, meaning like not have it your vibration level, your emotions, how you feel, impacted by what's happening around you. And that's what frequency work is about. It's about releasing those distortion patterns so you become internally strong, so that stuff doesn't affect you as much. It's the external world, right? That's the experience outside.
And I'd just like to add into that piece as well, that when you are internally strong and something does happen, as it could, you know, but you're strong enough to handle what comes.
Yes.
That's the difference, right?
Yes.
Because you're not freaking out and running scarcity patterns.
Yeah.
You're actually internally strong, and you know that what's coming, it's okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
You've got what it takes to handle it.
Exactly. And you can transcend. That's exactly. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for saying that. Because you're like, I don't know why this is happening. I don't need to know why this is happening. I know that I have the strength to transcend it. I just need to stay present in my body.
Yeah.
I need to be in the present moment. I need to focus on raising my vibration, not because I'm trying to get an outcome, but because I don't know what the outcome is. And when I do this, I feel better. I make better choices. I'm more centered. I'm more stable. I'm more calm. And oddly, the situation that seems kind of terrible somehow shifts, and it becomes this thing where it's like, oh, actually, I needed to have that happen because now I'm now in a different trajectory, and it's actually really critical for me to be on this trajectory, to be in the best situation possible for whatever is happening external to me.
Yeah. And I think also when you're internally strong as well, your whole, instead of getting like the 90-degree angle, you get the 360.
Yes.
What's available.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So it's not linear.
Yeah.
So meaning like you don't have just one option or two options or three options. It's like, oh, wow. There starts to be like all these possibilities that I wasn't even aware of that we've talked about called spherical awareness.
Yes.
And that's what you cultivate as you raise your vibration and as you start to enter the new consciousness. We are spherical beings. That is how the universe works. So you get to be, because think of a sphere, all the possibilities around the sphere, it's like millions of possibilities. It's supposed to like straight in front of you. You got these possibilities, that's it. Right? So you start to experience much more limitlessness, much more abundance that's spherical, and also much more possibility.
I think for me as well, just adding on to what you've just said, a long time ago I met an elder and he said to me, there's no such thing as scarcity. It's a man-made illusion.
True.
And I remember thinking, what is he talking about?
Because it feels real.
all you need to do, Fiona, is go outside and sit in the countryside and you see how many plants, herbs, berries, if left untouched by mankind, your belly would be full. You'd have shelter, you'd have wood, you'd have fire. There is no such thing as scarcity. It's an illusion. And I've always stuck in my head, you know, ever since. And as you're talking there, I can hear him again saying, see, I told you so. Yeah. Well, it took me 30 years to get it.
But it's true, and that's the perspective of the little S self, right? And what we have been in, like, there's so much distortion in the collective because of this fundamental disconnect with our connection to everything, to the oneness, and then all the lineage patterns and the cultural patterns that have passed this down,
and
being
the media
like,
that keeps on feeding the scarcity. Yeah. Oh.
So that's why it's the illusion of scarcity.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you who want to start to release some of these really heavy patterns of scarcity, I recommend listening to the GFC associated with this particular episode. And if you want to go deeper into releasing this so you can experience what I call spherical abundance, I do recommend the Spherical Abundance Workshop. If you like this episode, please hit the like button and share it with a friend. We're about to start the Group Frequency Calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and where change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear to the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.